Hello, welcome back to another episode of Love Your Body, Love Your Life. I'm excited to be here. Today we are going to talk about starting a business, maybe a side hustle, but just something that you've been wanting to start, something on your own, something entrepreneurial. I'm going to share my first entrepreneurial pursuit out of a 10-year mortgage industry career. I'm also going to share what I learned about myself through that entrepreneurial pursuit, what I would have done differently, when I had a pivot, and I'm going to go through all of that. So yeah, let's dive into it. So for a little bit of context, I've mentioned this in other podcasts, so sorry if you're hearing this story again, but I feel it gives you context. So I got into the real estate business right after high school, basically. I got my real estate license really early, 20 years old, and I was already working for a realtor as an assistant. And then one day I was actually at my high school boyfriend's sister's barbecue, and she was a realtor, and she asked me how my job was going as this real estate assistant. And I told her, oh my God, it's great. I'm doing the open houses, I'm doing the flyers, I'm doing all these things. And she was like, okay, you're doing the realtor's job. So she's like, you need to get your license. So I did, I got my license, and that landed me in the real estate business, basically. And I actually ended up working for her, under her wing for many, many years. And she, at that point, she had her license, I had my license, and she had actually gotten into the mortgage industry side of real estate. So since she kind of took me under her wing and wanted to teach me all the things that she knew, which I will always be grateful for that, I ended up in the mortgage industry. And so I ended up in the wholesale end of mortgage, which that's a whole other story. But I did very, very well. I was in that industry for many, many years, and I was very lucrative monetarily. And so I was in that business for several years. And I honestly never thought I would leave, but fast forward 2008, I was with my ex-husband. My life was taking a different turn, I guess. And to be honest, I was really burnt out. I was super burnt out on mortgage. I had worked so many years in that industry. I was living out of my car. And I write the story, all of that story, in my book, Love Your Body, Love Your Life, if you guys want to pick that up. But it was just time for a change for me, to be honest. And I didn't know what I was good at other than mortgage. I really didn't, because like I said, I had been in the industry since I was, 19, 20 years old. But I wanted to find something that I was good at with more heart and meaning. I wanted it to be my own. I knew that because in real estate and in mortgage, it was just pure commission based. So I knew I had this hustle already inside of me that I didn't have to really fine tune or anything. It was there. Like the hustle and the fire and the passion to create something from nothing was already there, which you need that. If you're going to start your own business, you need that internal hustle, that internal knowing that you can do something for yourself. So that was already there for me. I just wanted it to be more meaningful and more creative. And I didn't want it to be just about money because that's really what the mortgage industry now, looking back at, that was all it was for me. It was great. I made great relationships. I ended up with 2 really great accounts that were just feeding me business. And this was after like a year of hustle in the streets of trying to create great relationships. I finally ended up with 2 really good accounts that would just feed me business. I would travel with these people. They were just like my family and friends. So that was amazing and great. But in 2008, I decided I need to take a leap of faith. I had a lot of money in the bank. And like I said, I was looking at my life, and I had this other person in my life now at this time, which was my ex-husband. He was in the real estate business. So I thought I was pretty secure and stable at that point to take a leap of faith. So I did. I took a leap of faith, and I did, like I said, I didn't know anything. I didn't know what I was good at. So I tried everything. I felt like a fish out of water. I went to acting classes. I ended up in nutrition school, which I've talked about on the podcast. God, what else did I do? Well, I've always been an exerciser. And to be honest, I thought that was the only thing I was good at other than real estate. So I got deeper into the things that I already knew that I loved. And then it just so happened that one day I was in Pilates class, and one of my friends, she was an older woman, she and I were in the Pilates class just by ourselves. It was like a private, but there was 2 people, me and her. And we were walking back to our house because I lived on like a block away from the beach at this point in Corona del Mar in Orange County. And we were walking back. She was a neighbor of mine. And she was like, Jenna, she's like, I haven't picked up my camera in years. She was a photographer, years back. She's like, I haven't picked up my camera in years. I need a model. Will you be a model for me and do a photo shoot in my garage? And I said, sure, why not? So like I said, I was searching for something that I was good at. I did this photo shoot in the garage of my neighbor's house. And I remembered that I modeled as a teenager in that moment. And I thought, I might try to get re-signed with an agency. And Merle, that was my neighbor's name, Merle, she was like, Jenna, you should. She's like, you're pretty photogenic and you seem pretty comfortable in front of the camera. Why don't you? And I was like, yeah, why don't I? I mean, I don't know. I don't have anything to lose at this point. I really was just searching for something else to do. And I was really searching for my next pursuit, my next business. Like, what was I going to do to bring in monetary success? But again, I needed it to have more of me in it, more of what I love to do, more heart and creativity. And so I ended up getting re-signed with a modeling agency. And I started to do all these photo shoots. I did videos, I did runway, and I was just kind of in my element again. And what was happening was I was having to get spray tanned for photo shoots, for the runway, for whatever it was I was doing. And simultaneously, I was in nutrition school. I was definitely getting into more of my organic living, which I've talked about with foods and just my way of life. I was getting more into natural beauty, and all these things were coming to fruition for me. And I also want to say that I was definitely on a spiritual path at this moment. I for sure was on a spiritual path. I had met my mentor already, and I was having weekly sessions with her. I've been doing this spiritual work called BEST. It stands for Bioenergetic Synchronization Technique for decades now, for decades. And I just really believe in the spiritual work, you guys, because I feel like looking back, writing my notes for the show, I really feel like it actually led me to my next business. So it's just interesting how it all unfolded. So here I am doing these shoots, having to get tanned, wanting to have more organic, natural beauty in my life and living with foods and just my lifestyle in general. And I started to think like there has to be a healthier tanning solution that can be placed on the body. And what I was doing, I knew I was placing like a little bit more of a toxic, tanning solution and going to these tanning beds or booths or whatever and getting sprayed. I knew that they weren't that healthy, the ingredients. So what I did was I started to research organic tanning. And I found this guy in Palm Springs. His name was Mark. And he had a website, and he was talking about his tanning solution and what he was in it. And from my schooling at my nutrition schooling, all of the ingredients that he was placing on his website, I thought, okay, this sounds something like I would be into. It sounds definitely more organic and natural than what I'm used to doing right now with all these photo shoots. So I told my ex-husband, let's drive to Palm Springs. I want to meet this guy, and I want to see his solution, and I want to see what he's all about. So here we go to Palm Springs, drive out from Newport Beach to Palm Springs. We take a drive out. We meet this guy, Mark. He has a beautiful home, and he sells me on the whole business of organic tanning. He's like, Jenna, I have the most high-tech equipment. I will teach you how to do this on other women. I will supply you this organic solution. All you have to do is buy the equipment, buy the solution, and you're in business. Well, he sold me. He sold me on the business. And I thought, okay, well, this is what I've been asking for. So we left that day with the equipment and solution to get me started. Mind you, I had money in the bank, but I had also, from being in the mortgage industry, I had money in the bank, but I also had a lifestyle that I was used to living from making all this money monthly while I was a mortgage sales rep. So I had a private trainer at that time. I had a Mercedes-Benz. I, was putting myself through school, through acting class, buying my outfits for these photo shoots sometimes. And I was getting paid for these photo shoots, but not nearly as much as I was while I was in the mortgage industry, right? So there was a lot of risk involved in me buying this tanning equipment, buying the solution, buying the towels, buying all these things that were necessary for a startup business with no clientele. And so I just took the leap of faith, which I feel if you are ready for that leap of faith, then take it. I'm going to get into more of that and share more of what I learned, but I took the leap of faith. We drove home that day, and all we could talk about was what's next? What's the next step? What do I do? So I researched a marketing girl, or I think I was in actually a LaTip group at that time, where LaTip was big back at that time, where you would go and you would meet other business owners, and you would basically recommend an insurance person at the table. For me, whatever I was selling, they would recommend me as a tanning person, right? Anyways, I feel like somebody introduced me to a marketing girl. Her name was Sharon. So my next step was I was going to call this Sharon lady. And I did. I ended up hiring her for marketing. Again, I was on such a small budget, but I was taking this leap of faith. So I hired Sharon. I met her at a coffee shop I'll never forget. Told her what I was into. I told her I was into organic living. I told her I was modeling at the time. I told her just what I was really just involved with. And she created this marketing flyer. I'll never forget it. It was blue, and there was a shot of me in a black bikini and jean shorts. And that became my marketing. With the flyer, the silhouette of my body with this blue background, because it looked like the ocean. And then all of the benefits of my organic tanning solution. And the fact that it was going to be personalized, my clientele wouldn't have to go to like a salon. I was marketing myself as a person that would come to your home. I was a mobile organic tanning business. And so I feel like the next part, I feel like this was just God sent, to be honest, because like I said, my money was dwindling fast. I had to give up the private trainer. I had to give up a lot of things in order to keep up now this new business. So what came next was really God sent, because I spent a lot of money on this little marketing and my new machine, my solution, my towels. And I don't even know how this person was recommended to me. And I'm not going to say her name, but she was God sent, to be honest. She lived in this really prestigious part of Orange County, which if you are from Orange County, you'll know the prestigious area. She was from Emerald Bay. And it was a gated community, beautiful home. But she was my very first client. Very first client. Yes, it was pretty amazing. She lived in a beautiful home right on the water. As soon as you walked into her home, you were literally on the sand. I'll never forget it. Her living room was like literally on the sand. She had these beautiful French windows that you could see ocean for miles. She had a beautiful piano, white carpet, like a wet bar. And I was just like in awe when I went to her house. And so I told myself that if I were to be sent clientele, I wanted to create an experience for these women. I wanted to bottle up the feeling that I had after I talked to my spiritual mentor. And I wanted to bottle up the feeling that I had when I was doing these photo shoots. So I felt inspired. I felt empowered. I felt like I was having my true voice. I was able to create something with the camera, with these photo shoots, and I was finding my voice. I was finding something that I loved again, that I had forgotten all those years when I was in mortgage sales and I was pounding the pavement. That was coming back to life for me. And so I told myself that I wanted to bottle up that feeling for these women, my clientele, and I wanted to create an experience for them. And I wanted to set the intention for every client that, because I knew they were going to be naked, okay, right? They were either going to be in a bikini or they were going to be completely nude. I was coming to their house. They were going to be in their own shower. And so I knew emotionally that, think about it, when you're nude, you're vulnerable. Your parts are open. I mean, you're vulnerable. You're probably more open, or you're more closed off. And so I knew that coming in. And so I wanted to create a safe space and experience. And so I did. So for this first client, that was God sent for me, I brought in fresh white towels. I brought in a candle. I brought in orange juice and champagne with flutes. And I wanted to give her an experience. And if she didn't want the champagne, fine. If she didn't want the orange juice, fine. But if she did, it was there. And, I needed to be very intentional and intuitive with the women that came to me. So I created this experience with this woman. I'll never forget that experience. The first day I walked into her house, I ended up tanning her, and I knew that she had of feeling from that experience. She was able to open up to me, and she became a lifelong, well, I want to say a lifelong client, but the reason why lifelong comes to my mind is because I just talked to her about maybe 3 months ago. So obviously I'm not doing tanning anymore, but she remembers me. You know, she's moved on with her life and she remembers me. And that to me is meaningful. That means that I had an impact on her and she had an impact on me. And so, like I said, I feel like, you know, I was on this spiritual path and I feel like I was like led to her in a way, and I was able to really give her an experience, and she became my client for a long, long time. I would go to her house on a continuous basis. I started selling packages, and not only that, she referred me to all of her friends in that community. And you guys, my little mobile tanning business that I took a leap of faith on spread like wildfire. Like almost to the point where I couldn't believe it. Like I was driving up and down Pacific Coast Highway to women's homes on a continuous basis, 3 to 4 times a week, sometimes 5 times a week. And the money was coming in again. And I was so happy and excited. And at the same time, I was a little bit overwhelmed because I didn't expect it to grow that fast. But I needed the monetary, supply because my little nest egg was dwindling, like I said. And I had this, it was funny because like it was kind of like there was a switch. Like I used to be that client that I was tanning, right? Like I was the mortgage sales girl that I would have been able to hire the tanning girl. And now I was the tanning girl coming to these like beautiful homes and tanning these women for their events or a Laker game that night or whatever it was. I would create abs, with the tanning because it was very specialized. The airbrush machine that I had bought, it was very, very specialized and it was a beautiful little machine. I ended up doing tanning parties, like I said. And so yeah, that was my experience. And eventually I ended up renting a space in Laguna Beach and then one in Corona del Mar. And so I learned a lot about myself. So I want to get into things that I learned about myself in case you are listening and you want to start a side hustle and you want to take a leap of faith and maybe you don't know what that is yet, and that's okay. I encourage you to trust that if you do have that in your heart, I encourage you to trust that it's there, and I would allow it to unfold versus just jumping into something just to make money. That's really honestly my first tip, because I've learned that if you do something just for money, it might be there. Yeah, you might get lucky and you might strike gold, really. But at the end of the day, is that going to be fulfilling? I don't know. That's the kind of the question that you have to ask yourself. For me, that wouldn't have been fulfilling. I needed heart and meaning. So that I want to just say. So yeah, so pick something that is meaningful for you. And so the next thing I want to say is what I learned is what I would have done differently after like I got into this rhythm of tanning women and ended up having clientele that I could actually rent a space. I didn't have to be mobile anymore. I still offered that service to my clientele. Like my first client, I happily would have gone to her house if she didn't want to come to my space, which I feel like if I look back, I think that I still offered that to her and like maybe a couple other women. But for the most part, I didn't offer that anymore just because it was so much work. And so I ended up renting the space, and I just said, I only offer it to certain people, right? So looking back, what I would have done differently, and again, this is for anybody that is maybe in their business and they don't know what to do, I would have taken more risks. I would have taken more risks on myself. I would have invested more money. I would have taken a loan out. I would have taken a grant out. I would have tried to get a credit card, and I would have taken more risks. I would have hired another girl to do tanning parties on the side. I would have bought another machine. I would have invested in help, because what ended up happening was there was so much work involved. There's so much work involved in a small business that people don't, I don't think people really understand unless you've done it before. For example, I wanted everything to be very clean and very like white towels. I wanted my space to feel very just clean, and I had really white aesthetic. Even the tent that I would tan in, I bought like a top-notch tent. And so the towels, the white towels, would obviously get dirty from the tanning solution. And like some days I would have, maybe 15 to 20 clients, when I was in this Laguna Beach space. And my towels, I had to be ready for the next day. My towels needed to be washed and cleaned for the next day. And so sometimes I was in that Laguna Beach studio or salon doing laundry till 1 or 2 in the morning to plan for the next day. So I would be doing laundry after a hard day of labor, basically, because when you're tanning, you're up and down, basically on the body. And, I still wanted to create this atmosphere and this experience for these women. So sometimes I would be in the salon doing laundry till 1, 2 in the morning, schlepping that back home or leaving it there, and then going home, sleeping, and getting back into the salon by 10 in the morning. So looking back, what I would have done differently is I would have hired help. I would have trusted more in my capacity to make the money to hire somebody, or I would have just taken the risk and I would have done that. So that's one thing that I really learned about myself. The other thing that I wanted to say, just in case you are wanting to take that leap of faith, is make sure that you have support. Make sure that you have support. What do I mean by that? Not hired support. I mean just emotional support. Like, have somebody that you trust, that you can talk to and bounce ideas off of. Have somebody that you can talk to when you are having a hard day and you want to give up, because trust me when I tell you guys, those days will come. And that's why I say pick something that you are passionate about, that you wholeheartedly, in your gut and in your soul, feel like this is it. You want to do this. You want to put all of your heart and energy into something, because those hard days will come. Life will come. And, things break down. Things happen in relationships where you're emotionally gonna want to say, F it. I've had enough. This is too hard. I can't do this anymore for whatever reason. But if that passion is there and you have that one person that you can go to and just have a cry day, have an emotional day where you're like, I can't do this anymore. And you have that one person that says, yes, you can. This is just one day that you are experiencing. Have that person. Because, for example, if you have let's say you're a woman that you're renting a space with and you have a roommate and you started this hustle right? Your own business. You're excited. You put all this energy and money into, took the leap of faith, and you have a roommate that could care really less, right? And they're out till 1, 2 in the morning, and you're trying to get into bed by 9 or 10 at night, and your roommate comes home at 1, 2 in the morning and wakes you up. Think about that. Just think about those little things. That's going to affect your next day. That's going to affect your productivity. But right now, in the early stages of your business, it's hustling. It's boots on the ground. Hopefully you will be able to have that God-sent client like I did, which I feel if you do get on a spiritual path, which maybe you're not into that, but I recommend it because I feel like once you are on that spiritual path, it will just guide you. It will guide you and you won't have to go hunting and looking. And I feel like this client that came to me, I feel like that was because of my spiritual work. I really wholeheartedly do. So I would say get one person that you're emotionally safe with. One person that's your cheerleader, one person that gets you, one person that if you have a hard day, you can call. So I think that is, that's basically, what I feel you need. You need fire, you need hustle, you need to take a risk. You need to dive deep and ask, is this something that really I can put my energy into? Get really honest with yourself about how much money it's going to take to start that business. Maybe take a loan out, maybe get a credit card, maybe get a grant. There's tons of stuff out there online for women to start businesses where you can get a grant. And so I would really get honed in on that money because things happen again, you guys, where you need money and you need money to live first. You need that security and that stableness of ask yourself, can you buy groceries? Can you buy groceries? Can you buy toilet paper? Because if that's not there and you want to start a business, maybe it's not time. Maybe take a side, like a little mini side job. Get that stable first and then take your leap of faith. So I think that's really it. That's really what I want to say about starting a business is just get honest with the numbers, take a leap of faith, have some clarity on what you want to create and really believe in yourself. Because if I'm honest, I didn't believe in myself. I really didn't. I had my mentor and she believed in me more than I believed in myself. Lastly, there was a turning point for me. The business was great. The money was coming in. But the turning point for me was I was getting physically exhausted. It was really just hard on me physically. My body was just like, I don't know if we can do this anymore. And so that's why I say I would have taken more risks and I would have hired somebody to help me, but I didn't know any better, right? I didn't know any better. And there was a lot of things that were happening in my personal life that were also taking a turn, that I just knew that there was something else that I needed to do to multiply myself. Like I knew as a businesswoman that I needed to multiply myself in order to create. There was a brand in my mind that I was already creating. I was already thinking about my book and what else I wanted to create as far as a brand and as far as a business. And so the turning point for me was that I was physically tired. And I knew that I needed to multiply myself. And I already had the idea of how I wanted to multiply myself to create something bigger on what I had just created, right? I had already established the the groundwork for my brand at that point. And so, yeah, I feel like this is going to be part one, because in part two, I'm going to share what my next business venture was and how I multiplied myself to continue on with what I had established at this point. And so, because I don't think most of you know that I've created two businesses. One was the organic tanning business, and the other one I'm going to share in part two of this podcast. So yeah, come back for more, and I will share part two of starting your business from scratch, and I'll get into more of the nitty gritty of that in part two. So until next time, believe in yourself and go after your dreams and start your business if you want. Bye.